Perfect timing. We're just about to go over the party buffs they put in. So I guess I'll just start here. So they just put in the group buffs on the Japan server that we'll be getting on NA and EU. So we're just gonna go over them and we're gonna talk about what each buff gives and how they work. So you get one red buff and one green buff. Red buffs are combat buffs. Green buffs are kind of, I don't know if I'd call them out of combat buffs, but kind of utility out of combat. We'll go over them, but pretty much just out of combat buffs. In the red category, you've got attack, defense, and then utility, kind of. This is a boss buff, and then this one is class buffs. So obviously the translations we did might not be 100% accurate, but we're gonna get as close as possible. So basically the way it works is when you click on this, it tells you down here what the requirement is to activate the buff. So to activate this buff, you need just 2 people in your party. But as you go further on, some of these require 3 people in the party or 5 people in the party. When you get even further down to other ones, some start requiring certain classes. These buffs down here require 5 of this specific class to activate the buff. But then there's some, like in here, where all you need is 1 ranger, 1 mage, and then 5 people in the party, and you're good to go. So, okay. So what we're just gonna start, we'll just go through them real quick. So this is the first one you get. You get it just by being in a party of 2. There's only a couple buffs you get in a party of 2. You need at least 3 to have a choice between them, and then 5 gives like most of the buffs. So this one is just 3% increase to stats like agility, intelligence, that kind of thing. So nothing too big with that one. This one is a 15% increase to attack and spell power when you're a party of 3, and then the next one is 25% attack and spell power when you're a party of 5. This one seems to be the strongest just all around buff so far from what we could tell. When you're just in a normal party, it seems the best. The next one you get into though is crit, but it's only 1.7% crit. And then this one is 2.5% crit and 10% crit damage. So this one's not bad, but I think the 2.5% crit is probably a little too low to make it better than just a flat 25% attack and spell power. But you know, that's theory crafting for another time. But yeah, so next one is so this is 3% increased damage in PvP. So 3% damage to other players increase, and then 3% damage increased to other players, and 2.5% reduced damage from other players. So you can see there's like a level 1 buff, which is for the party of 3, and then level 2 buff for the party of 5. Next is the ranger and the mage buffs. So this one we're not 100% sure on, but what it sounds like is it's called float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. And the way we think it works is while you're moving, every 3 seconds you gain a stack. Okay, and then at 5 stacks, you gain 45% damage buff to your next attack. So basically, like while you're kiting and while you're moving, every 3 seconds you gain 1 stack, and then when you hit 5, your next 1 attack will do 45% increased damage. Who'd choose that PvP damage with 25% flat damage increase one? That's a good question. I mean, it does come with the damage reduction, but it's only 2.5%. It's a flat 3% increased damage and 2.5% reduced damage, but this 25% just seems so strong compared to like all the other ones that we looked at. It's, I don't know, you only get 1 out of this entire red cat, so it's not just like 1 from each of these, it's just 1 total. A flat 25% increase in spell power and attack power just seems so hard to pass up. I don't know. The other ones don't even really compare. Maybe if the crit one was like 5% crit, 20% crit damage, now that might be a little more close to being able to contend with it. But it seems like they try not to let you get too much crit because some classes work really well with crit and might scale a little too hard if crit was too easy to get. But oh yeah, I'm from Ohio. Sorry, I missed that one. Western PA, Eastern Ohio accent. Yeah, good old Ohio. Born and raised country boy. But yeah, so where were we? We did the Ranger Mage one. So yeah, that's the float like butterfly, sting like a bee. Then there's this one, which is another Ranger and Mage one. And that is, we're not sure if there's like there's not a distance listed, but this is like a range buff. So it might increase the further you get away, or it might be flat at a certain distance. But what it's saying is you get 20% more damage. Like one's for Rangers, 20% more like attack power, 20% more spell power. Like the further you get away, and then this one is 10% crit. I think it probably scales as you go up. So like the shorter distance, it's like a low percent, and then it goes up as you get further away. Or it could just be like once you get more than 10 meters away, you just gain all those buffs. I don't think it's that one. I assume it's probably scales like the further you get away. But yeah. But remember, you know, you only get one of these. So if you have, you know, if your party's like a Guardian, a Paladin, and then your 3 DPS is Ranger and Mage with like a duplicate of them, this probably could beat out the 25% attack power and spell power. Because you lose 5% attack power and spell power, but you gain 10% crit. So if you have a party of 3 of these DPS, this would probably beat it out. Let's see. Next one is melee buff. So this is for Guardian, Zerker, Assassin. We won't have Assassin, but yeah, they included the Assassin because it's on this server. You gain an attack speed buff for 3 seconds. And stacks up to 5 times, and it gives 4% attack speed each stack. So 20% attack speed. I think it's on damage dealt. It was kind of hard to tell, but I think it's when you deal damage, gain a 4% attack speed buff that lasts for 3 seconds, and it stacks 5 times. So that's your melee buff, and then another melee buff. This one sounded like once you've done damage 6 times, you gain a 100% crit chance buff on your next attack. So, you know, you just deal damage with 6 different instances of damage, I guess, and then your next attack will gain just a flat 100% crit for melee. So those are those. Next one is, these are the defense ones. First one is just physical magic defense increased by 4%, physical magical defense increased by 6.5%, max HP increased by 3.3%, max HP increased by 5.6%. It's pretty standard defense stuff, right? These are kind of tanky buffs. You see if you have a Guardian and a Paladin in the group, you can then get a 20% max HP increase and 20% HP, physical and magic defense increase. So this is a pretty good buff for defense. But like I said, you don't get like one attack buff, one defense buff, one of these, right? You have to choose either this like, you know, beefy defense buff or the 25% attack and spell power, right? So yeah, that's it's gonna be, I don't see when you'd pick the defense buffs unless you're like doing a raid boss or something and you're not running out of damage, you're not hitting Zerk time, or you're just dying to mechanics, I guess, is something like that. 20% HP is a lot, but yeah, so you have that choice there. There's some opportunities, I guess, when you could use it. This one is yeah, okay, it's this one. This one is when you take damage, you gain 5% physical magic defense, and it stacks up to 5 times. So, you know, you can see this is kind of the melee tanky sort of buff. Anytime you take damage, you gain 5% magic and phys defense up to 5, so 25% total. But it only lasts 3 seconds, so you gotta be getting hit a lot quickly. This one is just a Guardian Zerker 3% damage reflection buff. So if someone, you know, crits you for 1,000 damage, you reflect 30 back to them. So yeah. This one is, oh, okay, so this one's kind of cool too. This is with Assassin and Ranger, right? This is when you take 13% of your max HP and damage, you gain a 50% move speed buff and a 90% damage reduction buff for 5 seconds. So that's pretty cool, right? But we can't get this buff on NA because we don't have assassin. This requires a ranger and an assassin and then a group of 5. So also you'd have to take 13% of your max HP and damage, which would be possible in PvP. So it's kind of like a cheat death, right? That'd be pretty OP, but we don't get assassin on NA and EU. So we can't even use that buff anyway. Even though that would be kind of an interesting one to use in PvP. Alright, next. These are kind of like utility-ish buffs, I guess. This one is when you kill an enemy, you gain 50% move speed for 2 seconds. This one is if you don't do anything for 10 seconds, like if you remain at rest for 10 seconds, I think you have to stand still too, probably. You start to regenerate 1.3% health per second after the 10 seconds. And then this one is... Oh, this one's weird. So this one, the requirement is you have no paladin, or like... Because you need a party of 5, and you need these 5 classes, right? You need one of each of these to activate the buff. So obviously we can't do this one on NA and EU, but no paladin, and then it says like recovery skills are increased by 60%. So any recovery skills you have get a 60% increase because there's no like healer class, but classes don't have like recovery skills, so I'm not really sure what it's referring to exactly. Obviously it's trying to say you don't have a paladin in the group, so your healing skills are increased by 60%, but these classes don't have a healing skill, so I think there's something I'm missing with which skill they're referring to. But yeah, we'll have 5 classes on NA and EU: Zerker, Paladin, Guardian, Mage, Ranger. Zerker has this recovery skill? Okay. After you kill a mob. Maybe it's that then? I have no idea. It's kind of weird. I get what they're going for, but I'm not really sure what it's catered towards. So this one is do 5% more damage to bosses and take 15% less damage to bosses. Sounds kind of cool, but then you're like, well, why don't I just take the 25% increased spell power, attack power, or the 20% max HP and physical and magic defense, right? So this one I'm not really sure. I feel like there's just better options than this. I feel like since it's a boss specific one, you'd want it to be better, but yeah, I don't know. That's that one. These are okay. So these are the class specific buffs. Let me I'm gonna go through all of them, and then I'm gonna go back to one after I go through the other one, so you guys can understand and why I don't quite understand some of these. Okay, so this requires you to have 5 guardians in the party. All right. So you have to have a party of 5 guardians, and you gain 20% max HP and 20% block rate. Okay, I guess. I mean, you can get that other buff that gives 20% HP, 20% physical and magic defense. I know it's different than block rate, but it's like, and it doesn't require 5 guardians. So, alright, I guess. Sure, cool. A little bit of flavor. Zerker buff. When you take 13% of your max health and damage, you're gaining 50% damage buff for 5 seconds. So that's pretty cool with Zerker, right? Pretty thematic. And then you gain 10% of your max HP over 5 seconds when you kill something, and it has a 20-second cooldown. So that one's pretty cool. Requires 5 Zerkers to get. Is healing power a thing in the game, or is it based off Paladin's attack power? Because if so, another 25% healing power could be super strong. I don't know, actually. I haven't played a Paladin. I know they have Wisdom is one of their main stats. It increases spell power for Mage, but I'm not sure what it does for Paladin, if anyone in chat knows. Here's the Ranger one. 16% cooldown reduction and 10% backwards move speed. That's the Ranger one. Healing power is based on spell power. Okay, there you go. So yeah, so then the spell power buff also benefits your healers as well. Okay, so we're gonna skip Mage. So remember the Ranger one. 16% CDR, 10% backwards move speed. The Paladin one is 20. Okay, this one was really hard to figure out, and we're still not sure. But the first line is 23% increased healing done. And then the next 2 lines are kind of weird. We're still trying to figure that out. But it's like, it said you increase your healing on other players. So when you're healing someone other than yourself, you get like a 30% healing buff. But then it says something about a barrier of some kind. So I don't know if it applies a shield as well. to other players, or it's saying you, when you heal someone else, apply a shield that's 30% of the healing done. That one's kind of weird, but that's obviously you need a party of 5 paladins anyway, so that's kind of whatever. But and then the last line says something along the lines of like your wisdom is equal to your total damage tolerance. So I don't know if it's saying you gain a damage reduction buff equal to your wisdom in some way, or wisdom translates into a damage reduction buff. But the paladin one is, there's a lot in there, and that one's kind of hard to figure out. But the first line is 23% increased healing done. So this one is the assassin one. We're not gonna have assassin, but we looked at it anyway. It's just 50% increased damage with like back attacks. I think it's like specific back attacks. I haven't played an assassin. I haven't bothered looking into it since we're not gonna have it. And then 10% move speed. So now that you guys heard the other ones, so you heard the DPS ones, right? This is the mage one. 40% increase in spell power. If that's all it was, that's already a lot, right? We're not done yet. 10% increase in crit, and you gain your elemental resource when you crit. The mage, that's for a party of 5 mages. It's insane. I mean, I could have translated it wrong for all I know, but that's what we think it sounds like. I don't know. Mages, 5-party mage just sounds ridiculous for that buff. But yeah. So compared to like ranger and assassin, it's just kind of like, all right. So these are the green buffs, the kind of life / utility ones. I'm trying to get through these a little quicker so this video doesn't go too long. But so these are more or less out of combat buffs. First one is all about gathering. So you've got, in a party of 2, you get 11% increase in the amount of materials from gather and mine. They're called gather and mining on this server. So it's kind of like, gathering is like herbing, like you're picking herbs, or crops like wheat, barley, that kind of stuff, chili. Mining is your typical mining. You're getting stone, ores, gold, that kind of thing. So party of 2, you get 11% more materials. And then the next one is 15% increased speed of the gathering. So you gather 15% faster. This one, you can see down here, when you get to these, start to require races, okay? So this one requires at least to have 1 Maskew, because this is the race I am. So this is like the short one. And this gives 20% increase in resources. So you get a 20% increased resource, like gather. So if you got, you know, 5, you would get 6 instead. Then you go up to, these are just like second levels of these buffs. So you go from a party of 2 to the party of 3 buffs. So this is a 25% increase in the speed of gathering, and then 25% increase of materials gathered if you have this race and then this race. I don't know the race pictures yet, but yeah. So if you have these 2 races, you get 25% increase. And then finally, if you have 1 of each race, you get a 50% increase of resources gathered. So if you're gathering in a party of 4, now to be fair, I'm not sure who's going to gather in a party of 4, because you're kind of taking each other's, I don't even know if you would gather in a party of 2, but, or 3. So these are kind of weird, right? It sounds cool, but then you're like, if you have 4 people gathering, you know, from what I can tell, Ajax is like nowhere near me, right? And we still have these buffs. So you can actually join a 4 party and then go across the world, and like everyone could gather in their own spots. Yeah, you don't need to be near each other for these. So you can get in a party and then just be nowhere near each other and you still get the buffs. Next one is, so this was just called life. These are kind of just generic buffs. So the first one is just 3% increase in XP gained from killing mobs. That's it, just from killing mobs, and it's only a 3% increase in XP. So if anyone was worried about it being super like too much group XP buffs, 3% is low, and it's only from killing mobs. Now you can farm elites, which is a large amount of killing XP, but it's only a 3% gain. Like, it's not that big of a deal. You're not gonna, no one's gonna be like crushing you because they're in a party of 2 or something, or 3 or 4 or 5. So that's just a nice little bonus. You know, you're in a party, you're grinding out some elites, you're getting a little bit extra while you're doing it in a party. So that's pretty cool. Next one is 8% more guild XP. That's pretty handy for people trying to level their guild. 3% more gold, so you get more currency when it drops. 4% more honor points when you're in PvP, so that's kind of nice. These values are really low anyway, so it's kind of whatever, but this one is 4% more adventure points. That comes from when you're doing like dungeons and stuff like that. You these ones down here, you spend these at a vendor for PvE stuff. This one is 100% more swim speed. Yes, I actually I tested this one. It is actually just a 100% increased swim speed. When you guys go swimming, you'll see how much slower it is. I guess I can do it real quick because I'm right here. Look at how slow you swim, right? I even have a pet that gives me 10% swim speed, right? As soon as you switch to this, it's instantly noticeable. It feels, this is actually a pretty nice buff. Not that you go swimming very often, but the swim speed buff is actually really nice when you're stuck in water for whatever reason. But yeah, so that one's kind of handy. You do some like flank or something, your whole guild jumps in the water. I don't know, whatever. Okay, okay, so this one, okay, so now we're into next levels. So this requires this race, just this race in a party. And this gives 5% bonus XP when killing mobs and when killing players. So you get XP when you kill players as well, because I think there's like, you can level pass, level cap, so to speak, you know, whatever you want to call it. Everyone's got a different veteran system, elder system, whatever you want to call it. You know, you're at max level, you can keep gaining skill points, so you get XP when you kill players as well, apparently. So this is a 5% increase in killing monsters and killing players. So 5%, it's nice. It's not a game breaker, but to get this buff, you need to be a party and have this race. So that's good to remember. This one is an 8% increase of the same thing, killing mobs and killing players, but requires both of these two races. So 8%, you're starting to get up, you know, once you start getting close to 10% increase XP gain, you start to feel it a little bit, right? When you're killing. Like I said though, it's only when killing mobs or players. It's not on like quests or anything. So it's only when you're doing like your elite farming. But you need 2 different races as well. So people will be looking for different classes and different races for some of these buffs. So races don't have racials, and there's no advantage to picking one race over another, except for if you want to be, you know, no one picks the human race because they're boring, but the human race gives a really good XP buff, you might want to think about going human. But it's not really going to matter that much, to be honest. This one is, so if you have one of each race, you get a 20% reduced prices from vendors, and then 14% reduced repair cost. So that's pretty nice. Whenever you go to repair party, make like a, I don't know if these work in raids either. Make like a raid group or something, like constantly rolling so people can repair their stuff for cheap or something. I don't know, but you can do that. This one is, okay, this is one of each race. This is 8% increased honor and adventure points, and 13% increase in XP when killing mobs and players. So if you're in a party of 4, one of each race, you get a 13% increase in killing mobs. I translated all this, yeah. I can't, I'm not that big of a weeb. Long name to get noticed. Hi, what's up, dude? I noticed you. Female, but I don't think they have gender-based party buffs. That they're probably pushing it a little bit there. So yeah, this is the biggest XP buff, 13% only when killing mobs, but you need not only one of each race. You don't really mob farm until later, so if it's even the same on the NAU version. All right, last 3, so we can get out of here. These are mount buffs. So basically it's 15%, 30%, and 50%. Your mount consumes less fatigue. So whenever you're using your mounts, they have a fatigue bar. When the fatigue bar runs out, you have to switch to another mount. That's why I got a few mounts on here, right? So this says the mount consumes 15% less fatigue, consumes 30% less fatigue when you have this race in the party, and 50% less fatigue when you have these 2 races in the party. So those are the buffs. That ended up being almost a half hour long. Yikes. All right, so I'm gonna cut this off here. It's already a little too long, but yeah, those are the buffs. Check them out. If I obviously I might have translated something wrong, so feel free to let me know in the comment section down below. Come check me out on Twitch, where I am right now. Twitch.tv/Karth_WS. Vote for me for emissary. No, I'm not gonna put that in. Alright, I gotta clip that. That took longer than I wanted it to, though. My throat's dry. Oh, fuck, I forgot my Twitter, dude. I think I can upload it to YouTube while I'm streaming if I do it through the highlight. Yeah, we translated all the stuff earlier, and then I was just trying to talk about it real quick. Well, a little longer than real quick, but